Did you know we could play a game on here?
Yes.
Didn't know that.
so, first things first, as podcast do, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. I am Noble Yogurt, aka that one guy, aka you know who, aka brother, or bro, or DD. Either way, we are doing a podcast today with my sister. This will be the siblings podcast. Don't mind. I don't know if you like the name or not. I can always change it. Just let me know. Um, but I do like the fact that it's called the siblings because we are siblings. Um, Now, what I want to do here is make sure that you're good. I'm listening to things behind me, so perfect. You can't hear the fan or anything, can you? No. Okay, cool. So we want. So today's podcast on the sibling podcast, which is us, we will be discussing Star Wars as seen on the screen.
Oh,
So Star Wars is very passionate in both of our lives.
yes.
We grew up watching it, um, which, to say the least, was like the coolest childhood ever. Because of that, like just watching stuff as a child. Um,
I don't think that we could say our childhood was the coolest ever. We had arguably pretty shitty childhoods, but Star Wars was not part of the problem. It definitely made things better.
it did make things better, and so as today's topic is about Star Wars, I am wearing my Star Wars what the heck's that thing called? Elements table.
A t-shirt?
Elements table T-shirt. It's for the villains. I love it. You actually bought it for me from somewhere. I think Disneyland.
I did.
Yes.
Think so, yeah. Yeah,
So,
in the place where you build the lightsabers, right outside of what used to be Space Mountain and now is Star Wars. Well, it was a Star Wars thing many, many years ago. I don't know if it still is.
I believe it is.
I don't know. I haven't been since I went and got you that. I also get you a lightsaber?
No, you got yourself a lightsaber. If you remember that.
Oh, my friend bought me a lightsaber
Yeah.
from Target, not from Disneyland. But I thought I got you, didn't I get you a little? It doesn't matter.
Mm.
Um, I don't think you said my name.
I did say my sister Corinthia or
You said my
Corinne
sister. I don't know if you said my name.
or Corinne.
I don't know. I just Corinthia. Just Corinthia.
Speaking of which, I do have some people that have told me to tell you that they hope you're doing good, that they wish you luck on everything in the future. These are some friends of mine. So one was from Gordon, and the other one was from my friend Kwasnick. They both wish you well. I'm wondering how
Well,
you're
that's
doing.
nice.
Yeah. So,
I'm good. Thank you. Yeah.
so.
In honor of Star Wars, though, I am sitting in front of my bookcase filled with this is all Star Trek, and
Oh.
then the bottom two is all Star Wars. And I'm kind of channeling my inner Princess Leia with the white, no space buns, though. Yeah.
All right.
A bit of an Inception meta situation.
We both kind of went the different paths. One for Star Wars, one for Star Trek, of course. Um, Both love both, of course, but in our minds, one dominates the other. So I do.
Stargate. You can't forget that there's the three stars, right? Star
Yes.
Trek, Star Wars, Stargate.
So I'm gonna stop sharing screen because it is causing a bit of a lag on my end. I do apologize. But we are gonna talk Star Wars, of course. And so let's talk about who in your canon non-canon, legends, whatever. Who is your personal favorite villain?
Villain. Favorite villain?
Hmm.
Oh gosh. That's so interesting. I don't know. Who's yours?
Well,
I've read a lot more of the
yes, I have.
extended universe than I have.
That is true. So I have several favorites, but my all-time favorite is the man, the myth, legend himself. He came up with the rule of two, and that is Darth Bane. And I've read his book. I read all the books about him. He is just so awesome. I mean, he tricked
Wait, what about him is like, this is it?
because he could have been anybody, is what it was. But they chose as his origin for him to mine Cortorsis, which is the mineral that stops lightsabers and all that. So he mines Catorsis and then he leaves and eventually joins the Sith Empire as a regular soldier and then finds out he can use the Force by saving his entire platoon from a massacre. And he does it in a split second with a flashbang going off in his face. And I don't like he didn't know that he was like able to use the Force or anything like that. And what's really tragic is the first time he ever used the Force wasn't when he started realizing he could use the Force. It was before then. It was he when his father died. So when he was a kid, his father used to beat him, and then he ends up force squeezing his dad's heart.
God.
Right? But like he's already got that evil dark side mentality coming through just like in the first few chapters of his book, his origin. And eventually he says the dark side's too spread out. It's not powerful enough with so many people in the Sith Empire using the dark side. It needs to be simplified and put into two different vessels. One, the master to embody the dark side.
Mm.
Two, the apprentice to crave the power and eventually overthrow the master. Now, he did say that there were stipulations for the whole rule of two, but like he is the original Dark Lord of the Sith who started that rule of two. Um, and his first apprentice legit kills him. And that is really cool. He did try to get a second apprentice, but never worked out that way. Um,
You can't make the rule of two and then have a third.
so his decision was, I found this person who can use the Force. My apprentice is taking too long to see if they can overthrow me, become more powerful. Because that's what it was. It's like you kill your master, you're more powerful than them because you don't need them anymore. So the whole discard thing from the dark side, he starts that. Like, let me just discard a person because I don't need you anymore.
Hmm.
And I mean, there was other Sith Lords out there that did want to discard people for being useless, but his was if my apprentice isn't good enough to overthrow me, I defeat them and pick up another one.
Interesting.
It was whatever it was to make the dark side thrive.
You know, I think for me, I love an anti-hero. And so, like, I really enjoy the kind of anti-hero stuff that Han Solo tries to get up to in episode 4, but then he's like too much of the heart of gold aspect of that, so he can't really stick to it. But like if we're gonna go with sequels being canon, which I think even Disney is like backing up on some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because they even made the Solo movie. Didn't they make that non-canon now? They're like, JK, we were kidding. That's not real.
I believe
Um,
so. I can take a look.
Yeah, but I really like, and I know this is a controversial opinion, but I really like Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren, because he does, at least in episode, uh, I guess in the first one, yeah, in episode 7, he does kind of embody that almost Darth Vader-esque, I'm gonna push through and do whatever's necessary to do this thing, but more his own people seem to suffer from his wrath than the good guys, but he still goes to the extreme. And in a lot of ways, episode 7 was just a rehash of everything from the original trilogy.
True.
Which is fine, I guess. And it's not bad if that's what you want. If they had stuck with that, then that would have been okay, but
Oh,
they
sorry.
didn't. We do get more with like The Last Jedi, more of the torn anti-hero-esque story, and I really like that. I don't think The Last Jedi is a good movie in the middle of a trilogy. I think it would have been a good standalone movie if they were trying to do something else. But because episode 7 was the way it was, and J.J. Abrams doesn't know how to write movies with actual endings, and then episode 8 came in, and episode 8 was written by somebody else who wanted to try something else because everybody said episode 7's too similar to the others. And so then they tried something completely different, and then everyone hated that. And then episode 9 happens, and it's again a rehashing, but they were like, let's pretend like the other two movies didn't happen. Even things that J.J. Abrams wrote in episode 7 didn't happen in episode 9.
Mm,
So all of that like mess. I do like that genuinely Kylo Ren is kind of an anti-hero, even though they didn't really do his story any justice. And then, of course, then they were like, Palpatine it has been the villain all. So it was very lazy, is all I will say. Palpatine is not my ultimate villain. I like an anti-hero. I like a Darth Vader. I like a General Grievous who is like complicated and you don't know why they are the way they are. Or like a Darth Sidious who Darth Sidious saw the Jedi way of doing things and said, this doesn't work. And instead of trying to figure it out on his own, he went to the other extreme. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think I have a favorite, but I do like a good anti-hero.
okay. Well, anti-heroes are great. I do agree with you that Grievous was pretty cool. Myself.
And I'm just talking about the movies,
Oh,
none of
no,
the
I know.
books.
So I'm gonna give you a little history here for you. Are you ready? You
Okay.
mentioned Palpatine being back and being the ultimate villain and all that. So in episode, what was it, 9?
Yeah.
We do see that he's making clones,
Hmm.
and they're all like either like deformed or anything like that. Now, in the books, I'm only going off the books just to give you a little background on this one. In the books, it is stated that it is very, very hard to make a Force user clone. So, in order for them to even manipulate the Metachlorians, that's just like one little microscopic being that they don't even like understand, other than it gives you connection to the Force and everybody has them. Now, they could try to flood the person with Metachlorians to give them that Force ability, but the reason why there wasn't that many Jedi is because it is a 1 in 10,000th chance you were born with with the Force. So even cloning, you still have that 1 in 10,000.
Right. I just want to say, if your movie makes so little sense, someone has to read a book to understand it, you made a bad movie.
Right.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, also in the books, one of the comic books, it's where Luke Skywalker himself goes to the dark side and fights a clone of the Emperor. Now, in this clone area, Luke destroys every single clone of the Emperor. The Emperor had like a little tiny facility. He had what's known as spare um, tubes, which allow the cloning process to go faster without all the defects of kimono cloning. So Luke goes on this mission to go to the dark side to destroy the Emperor himself. So he tricks the Emperor into thinking he went into the dark side, but he legit went to the dark side. Um, and in this, he goes to Bass Castle. This is before uh, Disney or whatever decided that Vader needed a castle on Mustafar. No. Uh. His castle before was on an acid rain planet that was constructed out of material that could not be burned by acid. It was the best story arc I had ever read with clones and everything. And even in some of the video games, like Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, it shows Vader's castle. So, and this one's on Bast. The whole place is just called Bast. So Bast Castle, Vader's Castle. Um, and inside the video game, which is based off the comics and stuff, you see a statue of Vader that was knocked over and just blown to pieces. And in that, it goes back to the comic where Luke was fighting a bunch of dark side people that Palpatine had and destroying the clone facility that was in Bast Castle. So that it was a great way to go homage to the comics as well as keep the story going and go with an already written storyline. Now, you and I both agree, whoever was running the show was just like, oh, we have all this fantastic story. Let's just throw it right out the door, and come up with our own.
Well, I think a lot of it was they didn't want to pay the authors for their IP because they knew, now it's Disney property, it's going to be worth a lot, and these authors are going to say things like, "You want to make a movie? Pay me $5 million for this because you're going to make 30 times that." And they do. They make a lot of money on these movies.
Yeah.
And so instead of paying for the IP of which is intellectual property, instead of paying for the IP of Star Wars, which they already did from Lucasfilm, and then pay for the IP of things like Thrain and Jason Solo and all of that, they just say everything's original, which is why none of the characters have any of the names from the books. There's no Mara Jade. There's no, Han Solo and Leia aren't even together, and so they don't have the twins and Anakin. There's no Anakin, and they're not rebuilding the Jedi. They send Luke off so that it can't even come close to resembling any of the EU,
Right.
which
And
is annoying as hell because fans have already supplemented their canon with all of this actual canon, and then to be told everything you know and that you've felt an attachment to no longer exists, and the stories we are building are going to be working so much to not be those things that in a lot of ways they don't make sense in universe.
right, and you and I both brought this up when number 9 came out. They never mentioned that either Rey or Kylo were nexuses in the Force, also known as
Well, and they
paradigms. Uh,
were like, "Oh, we don't need to talk about holocrons. We'll come up with something else." And then they're like, "Oh, they're two halves of the same soul, like with Revan." And then they didn't do anything with that, and they're like, "Oh, Ben Solo, he's dead," which means Rey now has half a soul. There's no thought of what that means and the ramifications. And then also if Rey was dying and that could have killed Ben, then Ben being dead should have killed Rey.
so I think what they were trying to go with is the life transference technique, uh,
Sure.
which is
I
what
just think that whole scene is a mess
it
because
is.
they heavily imply that Ben or Kylo, whatever you want to call him, has been calling out to the other Jedi for help and trying to get guidance, and they've ignored him. And then at the end of all of that, the only person who shows up is his own imagination's version of his dad.
which
And
is
then when
bad.
Rey, who has never been a Jedi, calls out at the end of her life, they're like, "Oh, great, we can help. We can step in. We can give you superpowers. This is great." I'm sorry, what? The descendant of your chosen one has been crying out for help since he was a child, and you had shit to say. And
Right.
suddenly, some stranger from a desert planet who's the descendant of your enemy calls out for help once, and you guys are lining up. It was so messy, and they tried to frame it as this like girl boss moment, and it was not. It was an insult. Rey was not a sympathetic character,
No.
which is fine. Not all women have to be likable, but as the protagonist, she wasn't likable. In that moment, they said Palpatine won essentially, even though they tried to make it being about like it's not who you're from, it's not where you're from, it's who you become. And if that was the case, why did she choose to go by the name Skywalker? A name she had no attachment to, by the way.
And where did the romance come from?
Right. Look,
Are they
I like The Last Jedi on its own. I like The Last Jedi.
by
I
itself?
like
Yes.
that there's this sort of, you know, star-crossed lover aspect to it, right? It's almost like if Anakin and Padme had met after Anakin started his trip down the dark side, that's what that would have looked like too. So there is a little bit more of that rehashing or, rhyming as George Lucas says it. So that does make sense as the like no, they're both radicalized. Rey has been radicalized and just told these are the things that are true and these are the bad guys and there's no nuance. And the same for Kylo Ren. There's no nuance. These people hate you. They're all villains. And the idea of them like having conversations and coming to the middle made a lot of sense when these are two people who are being manipulated and Star Wars is supposed to be a reflection of our society and we know now that there are no, hard and fast good guy bad guys. It's not a rehashing of World War II. It's today, and today is full of nuance. So that made sense. And having a little bit of that romance made sense. But it only makes sense if you do something with it. If you actually use it. And then they didn't use it because people hated it because it didn't make sense with episode 7. But episode 7 and episode 9 also don't fit.
Mm-mm.
So what they did is they took two extreme characters, had them talk to each other, and then episode 9 they were like, actually they don't talk to each other. They hate each other still because we've decided there are just good guys and there are just bad guys. Ben Solo is evil and Rey, Kenobi, Padme, whatever you want to call her, because you've headcanoned her because we didn't answer any of your questions. She's actually a Palpatine, but she's good.
But like
Drove me crazy.
that's also the thing. Like, why did she have to be a Palpatine? I get like it's saying like not everybody's inherently evil, but she didn't have to be a Palpatine. They had so much like out there.
And they marketed it as this, it's not about the Skywalkers anymore.
Hmm.
It's anyone can be the hero in Star Wars.
Hmm.
Then they were like, oh, actually, it's Palpatine. Because that was the whole point was that she's Rey Nobody, right? She doesn't have a family name. She's not connected to anybody. There was literally no reason for her to be on Jakku as a Palpatine, except for the way they shoehorned it in episode 9. And episode 9 was so long for no reason and had an Indiana Jones-esque adventure in the middle because they needed to fill in the plot holes that they created.
Right, and let's not talk about them space horses. Like, how the freak did you even get those to where you were at?
And like they didn't use Finn, who was marketed in the first one of this new trilogy as the hero.
Yeah,
Right? He was going to be the Jedi. He was going to be the main guy. And then that didn't happen.
and let's face it, they even hinted that he might have been a Windu.
Right. Or the son of sorry. Or the son of what is his name? Or
Calrissian.
is he? Yeah. Um, they hinted all of these things, and they hinted at like, oh, he could help find who all of these lost children are that are now stormtroopers. They did nothing with that. They did nothing with Rose. They did very little with Poe. And what they did with Poe is they took the only, um, Hispanic actor playing a character and made him a drug dealer.
Basically.
Because they wanted a facsimile of Han Solo, who in episode 4 says he's a spice runner,
Which
right?
is the drug.
Which is a drug. And so they were like, hey, what if we just made Poe Han Solo? Even though we did all of this work in the one before this movie to remind you that Ben Solo is Kylo Ren and therefore the son of Han Solo. And we've tried to redeem him, and we could just do that because we've already started that process. And like, even if you don't like The Last Jedi, which I know most people don't, it's controversial as a movie in that trilogy. I get it. I like it as a standalone movie. Even if you don't like it, it still happened. They set up all of these things that J.J. Abrams could have come in and used, and he didn't. He didn't use Rose because racists on the internet didn't like her. He didn't use Finn because racists on the internet didn't like him. And because he and Oscar Isaac said that they would love to see more LGBTQ representation. They didn't use Poe except to make him a drug dealer and to connect him to other white people. It was messy. And it was very Disney.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw, they barely did any like publicity for the movie when it came out. I didn't even know when it hit DVD.
I didn't either.
But I will say that I did cry at the end of the movie because it was that bad. Of episode 9.
It was
I
finally
cried in the
over.
theater. It was that bad. I was like, how did they just waste all of these years of my life, all of my money, all of my time in this specific movie? And the really like terrible thing is I know that people watched it and liked it.
And what's the worst part is that a lot of people don't liked the changes. Don't get me wrong, there were some really good changes, but there was also some really bad changes too. Like, for one, yeah, they did things where it was like, oh, you can see them manipulating the force better. But what I liked in the originals is it wasn't always them relying on the force to help them win. It was strategy, it was brute force, it was I have to win this duel to survive. You know, and granted, we got a couple of those in the you know 7, 8, 9, but it wasn't as exciting because we got something at the beginning of episode 7. We got to see a little bit of race staff work. Okay, I would have loved. I don't know about you, but I would have loved to see Ray use a lightsaber staff. It would have been
Um,
her go-to weapon. Would have been my go-to weapon, considering like her thing is I use a staff, but made no sense of why one-handed.
yeah. I think that the problem that they ran into is that, 4, 5, and 6 were very much World War II allegories and post-war and then the lead into the Red Scare, right? It was all kind of this commentary on that. And then episodes 1 through 3 were a commentary on the United States being at war in the Gulf War, the war on terror. I use that term very loosely, and kind of the pitfalls of being committed to a war because of economics, right?
Right.
Now we're at in war all the time, and we're not the heroes.
No.
We're not the heroes.
No. No.
And so instead of having this kind of clean palette to
Mm-hmm.
say, the Republic is good, here
It's
are our enemies, we're not good.
no.
We're the bad guys. It's really hard to say, oh, remember Leia and Han and Luke and Chewbacca, who you were rooting for in episodes 4 through 6?
They're all
They're the
dead.
bad guys now.
Yeah, they're all dead now.
Yeah, they're dead. They're protesting against the government they helped establish because now Republic is on the bad side. So instead of seeing them as terrorists or
Yeah.
protesters and insurrectionists,
Yeah.
they were just like, what if it was fascism again?
But
We're
double.
still good.
Yeah.
We're There's no commentary there.
No.
So, I think that they really struggled because good art is a reflection of the time it's created in and of the creator. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. J.J. Abrams doesn't know how to write an ending. He loves to create mysteries and make you answer them yourself, but that's not how movies work.
That's not how anything works.
Can't, well, and like there can be those moments where you're like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what blah, blah, blah was. But you can't have, I wonder what blah, blah, blah was, and the blah, blah, blah is your whole movie.
Yeah, and then I don't know. There was just so many. Sorry, my camera kind of died on me, but
Okay.
working to fix it. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like J.J. Abrams, God bless his soul, he does know how to work a camera. I'll give him that. He does that method where he's tapping
He
the
doesn't,
camera.
it's not where directors don't do anything with the cameras. It's their cinematographers. So what J.J. Abrams says is to his cinematographer, like, hey, this is the effect I would like. And that's why you get the lens flares and whatever. But
Which was great.
J.J. Abrams isn't even the one working the camera. He just tells the cinematographer and the DP, the director of photography, this is what I want the scene to look like. And then they have to figure it out. And so
Yeah.
if you like the way a movie looks, it's not the director.
No,
That's the other thing is
but
like,
in
yeah, he
his
has these like characteristic things he wants
yeah,
out of the movie, but he's not doing it.
no, and what's really sad is like we've been talking about, like let's get off the whole movie aspect. Star Wars universe itself is expansive, like huge, you know, and I myself, because they're doing that series, the High Republic or whatever, I haven't watched it, and I think
I
everything
don't
just
know.
died. So, everything's fine now. Okay, I wasn't hearing any audio. So, yeah, like my thing is like, yeah, some of it was bad, some of it was good, but like a lot of it made no sense. And then you have the expanded universe, which is great. One of my
Hmm.
favorite things to read is the legends, because the legends were the best before they decided to call them legends, whatever. Those are my canon. And like I was saying last podcast, is I really want to see um, this group of clones. You know, these special forces clones that have lives. There's one that has a baby with a Jedi. There's all kinds of stuff. It's so great of a thing, but yet we have these people out there that are like, that story sucks.
Yeah, I just it's Disney's never going to do anything with that stuff because they don't want to pay.
Right. And let's face it, at
No.
the point that they were making 789, they were trying to make a Disney princess.
I don't know that they were trying to make a Disney princess. I think it was a lot of it was money and a lot of it was they were told they do market research and they were told these are the demographics that you want to target your stuff towards. But for so long, we as a society have been told that Star Wars is for boys. And so when they started marketing to girls, to women,
Mm-hmm.
the dude bros got mad. So,
I mean, not
hell
a
hath
lot
no
of us got
fury
mad.
like a fanboy with an anonymous name. But the loudest ones were the
Yes.
ones who were saying, we don't want to see a girl with a lightsaber. We don't need Asian people. We don't need, gay people. The loud ones were because they felt comfortable doing that online. Because for so long, those were the people being catered to. They were the ones being marketed to. And
Yes.
so when marketing changed and they realized, hey, women have money too, women like sci-fi, and a lot of sci-fi is actually built and maintained on the backs of female labor, the Disney didn't know what to do with it.
No, they had no clue what to do with it. And my thing is like, I would love an Ayla Secura show, like just her, like in the
Mhm.
Clone Wars, fighting with her two lightsabers, just going at it, having like missions. I mean, she has a great story. She she before the Clone Wars, she was already a master. She became a master of two-handed technique, which is crazy. A lot of adaptability, but a lot of people don't like her. I mean, I get it, but also you have to like not just listen to most of those fans that are racist, sexist, whatever. You know, I mean, shout out to LGBTQ whatever community. Sorry, I don't really keep up much with it. I think there's a plus now. Yeah, there's a plus. Um,
Yeah, LGBTQIA plus, or you could just say LGBTQ plus.
okay.
Uh, I wouldn't say whatever. It feels flippant.
It, okay, I don't know the acronym that well, so shout out to the people that are LGBTQ plus. Don't get me wrong, I love the people. My sister's an L or a B. I don't know. Depends on her. Given day, who knows?
I would say I'm more of an A, but okay, yeah. I could be a B. I could, yeah.
So like,
I think it's more of a now, but yeah.
mm, so the cool thing about this is they have this potential from the original books. These aren't even the ones that they're saying that are not like canon. These are the ones they're saying that are canon. You know, they're saying, oh, these are canon. They have the Revan book. Okay, I know you know about Revan. You played the games. I played the games, but I read the book. Revan gets such a raw deal at the end of the book, and it sucks. But they they give him homage into the online multiplayer, uh, massive multiplayer online game, Star Wars: The Old Republic. Okay, so Revan was held in captivity for 300 years,
Mhm.
and eventually he escapes, and then he becomes a dark side user again, purely dark side. He wants to kill everybody and all that, and then he gets killed. But then he comes back again 1,000 years later. Same thing happens. So Revan is such a cornerstone for all of these stories and stuff, especially for the Old Republic. Like, not many people know a lot about the Old Republic because one, not many people wrote stories or like they're not advertising it enough or anything like that. I mean, God bless the video games,
Well,
it's
and
great, but
the casual viewer is not going to go look for uh, supplemental reading.
no, but also like heavy fans like I was. Um, I didn't read my first Star Wars book until I was in high school. If you remember that, you were the one that introduced me to it, and it was a zombies book, and
I remember.
it's called Death Troopers, made by Drew Capuchon. One of the best, if it was gonna happen, Star Wars books. I would love to see it. They're trapped on a prison barge inside of a star destroyer. And oh my god, Han Solo and Chewbacca get into this book late, but you are late to the fact that they were in solitary confinement because let's face it, our boys are naughty.
I think it would be really cool if they could do something with like that exact book. If they did something like like an animated like Halloween special, but they made it like geared it towards more PG-13.
Hmm.
Because I really think that would work.
Well,
And that
here's
way you don't have to worry about having
yeah,
whatever his name is, Ansel Elgort or
uh,
whatever.
yeah. And then there's also a precursor to that book. So he made Drew Capuchin made Death Troopers, and then he made Red Harvest, which is the origin of the zombies. Which, oh my god, it's so great. It's about how this flower has a connection with a Jedi, and in order for
Mm,
this Dark Lord to get his immortality, he has to sacrifice the Jedi that is connected to the flower. And it's a sentient flower. So like what are you supposed to do here? It doesn't talk, it just uses the
mm.
force to like say, "Hey, I'm hungry" and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
the the whole point the whole thing is we don't want to get this thing off a planet. Now it's a planet filled with zombies, and I would love to see them make something like that. Who isn't a zombie
yeah.
fan, right? I mean, some people aren't, some people are. I am. My sister is. Chat. We. You guys can comment if you want. If you want to see a zombie version of that, maybe we can see when I make some more money if we can get an animated version of this.
Well, I mean, crowdfund, I guess. But
Yes.
yeah, I think it would be really interesting. I know that they just had the Han Solo, not Han Solo, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which I did not watch.
No.
Um, I'm just like I said, last one, I'm just tired of Disney. Um, but it's kind of that in between of 6 and 7. I would really love to see them do something with the Rise of Darth Vader. What is it called?
Yeah, it's called The Rise of
That
Darth
book.
Vader. The Dark Lord. Rise of Darth Vader.
Yeah, yeah. I have it over here. And it's this, it's right after episode 3, and he's still getting used to his position as Darth Vader. And, it's told from the point of view of somebody else, not Darth Vader.
No.
Of And I just think it would be really interesting to see, he's not used to killing Jedi, bar that one moment. Um, or I guess I should say one day. But like outside of that frenzy when he cooled down, like those were his friends. Those were his colleagues.
They
And
were his
so he's
family.
trying to figure out, right, they were the people he had known the majority of his life. And there's that muscle memory he has of that's my comrade, I need to help them, but actually no, he's hunting them.
Yeah.
So I think it would be really interesting to see that story. And then also, I mean, we both loved playing Star Wars The Force Unleashed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget that I beat it before you did.
We
Um,
have got to
but
make
I
sure.
really,
Hmm?
I, I would really like to see something with Starkiller and that storyline. I think that would be really interesting. I know that they've done something kind of like that with um, the Cal Kestis story, but I think it'd be really interesting to see Starkiller and all of that come out, especially since in the game it was kind of a choose your own adventure, dark side or light side. They could do something like that with, different endings if you wanted.
So, interesting fact. The Force Unleashed is considered canon.
Okay. To know.
Yeah, so we may be seeing a dark clone Star Killer from the second Force Unleashed 2 hunting down rebels, and then we see him fight some other Jedi that just overpowers the heck out of him. So remember, people, in Episode 3, it doesn't show all the Jedi that were dead. At that time, there was 100,000 Jedi in the galaxy, and not all of them were murdered. Some of them got away. And that is based off because some of them didn't have clones, Some of them were on secret missions by themselves. Others, their clones were so loyal to them that they didn't fire.
Hmm.
And I believe the one I can think of that didn't have any clones fire on them was what was her name? I'll find it later. But she she ended up marrying a clone through Mandalorian means. They say a few short sentences and then boom, they're married. She even had a baby with him. Again, these are details we don't get to see because it's all back, and behind the scenes and stuff. They focus on the main characters, which is Skywalker, Kenobi, Palpatine, apparently, anything like that. But like my favorite thing is reading these books, seeing where they go. I mean, there's a whole legend um, where Luke Skywalker himself fights a deity. And I literally mean a dark side deity. Her name is Abeloth, and she tries to take over the entire galaxy by changing her appearance and taking over bodies. And the only bodies that'll sue her are ones that are Force users because of the midichlorian count and all that. But like, she legit makes it all the way to the Senate, becomes head of state for the Senate and the entire galaxy, and then says, "You see this Jedi temple across the street? I'm gonna take it from me. It'll be my palace." She goes in there, ends up going into a trap set by the Jedi, Luke himself. So, I mean, it's very, very good series. It's all about going from one aspect of the Force. Like, Jedi aren't the only ones that use the Force. There's Theron listeners. There's mind drinkers. Those guys are crazy. There's the my favorite ones, the Baron Doe sages. So we've all seen Plo Koon. His people are known as the Baron Doe sages. Well, not his people, but his people don't breathe regular oxygen, so they wear the mask. And it would have been cool to go see like his planet, see him without the